So part 3 of how I'm creating a product from start to finish, from an inception in my brain to an actual prototype to a product that I'm now going to take to market. So I just detailed in parts 1 and 2 how I took an idea I had in my head one day by the pool with my girlfriends into an actual tangible prototype that has measurements, that has a whole report attached to it that is talking about the design, the little details and idiosyncrasies about that design, and I'm ready to go now. I'm ready to get this thing manufactured. So my big question is, do I want to manufacture this, or do I want to do more of a licensing deal? Which, when I talked to my uncle, if you go back on part 2, you'll see that I spoke with my uncle at length about what he recommended I do to bring this product from inception to actual market. And he said, you do not want to manufacture this product. You don't want to be talking to factories. You don't want to be trying to get this manufactured and then promoting it and taking it to market. That's going to be way too much work. It's a total nightmare. From anybody that I've talked to, they have said it's a nightmare. He said, really what you want to be looking for is a licensing deal, which means I go to a bigger fish. Like you always hear Kevin on Shark Tank saying, why shouldn't I come in and just squash you like the insect that you are to these little entrepreneurs? And that was kind of my uncle's advice. He was like, if you try to do this and take it to market, another big company will just come in and copy you basically and make a few little tweaks to your design and then go and mass market and sell it. There's no point in doing that, which I'm learning more and more. That's what you can do with a patent. You can go get a patent, but people can just basically like springboard off your idea and kind of create their own version of it, but maybe do it better or maybe tweak it a little bit so that it doesn't fall under the parameters of your patent, but it's still kind of your general idea. Like it still has the same functionality. So my uncle was saying it is not going to stop a big company in doing that. So what you should do is create the prototype, talk to manufacturers, see how much it's going to take to manufacture your product, work with them on negotiating so that it's a good deal for you or for whomever buys your product from you or licenses it. I will explain that later. But work with the manufacturer to get them down and to get a negotiable rate so that you're making a lot in producing your product and selling it to market. There's a large percentage that comes back to you as the owner and the manufacturer. And I said, okay, that makes sense. So he said, get in talks with the manufacturer, but don't necessarily manufacture them. And then you take that entire file, all of your workup, your idea, your prototype, your manufacturing deal, you take that to a big company, a big drinkware company. And you say, hi, I have an idea. Would you like to license this? Which means that they take your idea and they say, this is a great idea. We can see that we actually need this in the market. We will talk with our manufacturers. We will use your idea and we will then give you a cut or a percentage of each product sold. And that's a licensing deal. It's like they're taking it and they're running with it. So I thought, okay, I like your advice. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do it 110%. Doesn't necessarily mean that a licensing deal is what is meant for me. I will find that out as I go on this process. But I'm going to take his advice with a critical eye and I'm going to move forward in that direction. I take his advice and I'm kind of at a standstill. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to talk to manufacturers and I guess I need to try to deal with drinkware companies that are already big. So I started going to Target and looking in the drinkware section. I started looking at the backs of similar products to mine in the same family. And I started to call around to these companies. Now, a lot of these companies, like let's say you go and you buy a drinkware product at Target and it's, another brand is selling it at Target. They're not going to give their manufacturer on the packaging. They're just going to say it's manufactured in this place. They're not going to disclose the name of the factory. So I used ChatGPT with this. I started asking ChatGPT, hey, I have this drinkware company. It looks like who do they manufacture their products through? What factories? And I started to get indicators as to, this factory is here. And a lot of them were in China. Okay, so I was feeling a little worried about that because I've never manufactured anything in China. I called my brother who's done some work in overseas manufacturing and he said, listen, you have to have an MOQ, which is a minimum order quantity. So if you order from these big companies and you manufacture it yourself, then you're going to have to order a minimum number. So like 500 or 1,000. And so you're going to have some capital up front. You also need to be able to negotiate with them, and there's a language barrier. And he also said when you deal with companies overseas, they don't care about your patent. A patent is a U.S. thing. So don't be surprised if they copy what you have come up with and they start manufacturing it on their own. So I was like, okay, well, that's intimidating, right? I was like, I'm not supposed to manufacture it, but I still wanted to look into it, as my uncle said, to try to figure out, how much would it be? Let's get that process going. And then it was like, I would try to reach out to these companies, and there was a language barrier, and there wasn't a direct point of contact. There wasn't anybody to speak with directly. So I didn't really get anywhere with that. So I kind of laid off of it. Then I started to look at the back of packaging here in the US to try to figure out companies that could manufacture my product. I wasn't getting a lot of traction with that. People weren't really answering my emails. They weren't answering my inquiries. I felt like I was calling a random factory out in Ohio and I didn't have anybody to talk to. It was just frustrating. Like I wasn't getting anywhere, which is something else you're going to notice when you're working on a product or trying to be an entrepreneur. You're going to go down certain roads that kind of dead end, and they don't move succinctly. They don't move smoothly. There's not a very clear direction as to what step to take next. That's totally normal. So I did get a little frustrated, but I kind of sat back and I knew from the months prior that really this is a fluid process. The answer would come to me. I needed to be more concerned with my head game and relaxing and not getting overly stressed out and concerned. And then that's when the answers would come. So I did. I put it kind of on the back burner. I started working on other projects. I started working on other things that I wanted to do. And I just thought the answer is going to come to me when it's supposed to come to me. At this time, I was like really getting better at ChatGPT, and I was using ChatGPT in a lot of my other projects. So I thought one day, why don't I ask ChatGPT about my next steps? So I did. I had a full-on conversation with my ChatGPT. Her name is Valen. She named herself. And I started to ask her, hey, I have this product. I'm going down this road. I've tried to look at manufacturers. I haven't had much luck. What do you recommend I do? She said, well, if you're interested in a licensing deal, you should reach out to the big drinkware companies that you know off the top of your head, email them and tell them not a lot of info. You're not giving them your full prototype. You're not even giving them really what the functionality of your product is. You're just saying, hey, I have a drinkware idea. I would really like to move forward with this. Is there anybody I can speak to at your company that deals with these type of things? It literally wrote me an email. It constructed it for me. It didn't give a lot of information. It was very basic, but it wrote the email up for me, and then it gave me the email address of the person over at this big major drinkware company to reach out to, which I did. I sent an email. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, nothing has come of that. I have never received a response yet. That phishing lure is still out there. It's floating around in the ether. And when the timing is divine, I know that I will get a response back on that. Again, I'm being delusional. I'm not stressing though. I'm forgetting about it. I'm letting it float out there. It may be a probability. It may not. But I did what I needed to do down that path. Now I'm just kind of relaxing. I'm back in that state of mind of like, okay, I'm waiting for the answer to come to me. I've done everything that I can do. Nothing has flowed really smoothly or succinctly, so it must not be divine timing. I'm sitting back and I'm waiting until I get the next prompting from my intuition or the next opportunity or the next synchronicity to know what to do. Part 4.